judgment is always against sin. But long before the writing of the book of Romans, according to Paul, mankind had reached their lowest level of their downward fall. Now remember, 2,000 years ago, this is Paul's analysis of the condition of humanity. And here we are 2,000 years later. To the extent that they did not even want to have the knowledge of God. They didn't want God's information. Another 2,000 years of human history now has passed, and sadly, mankind is worse off than ever before. According to Psalm 14:1, they have become fools. The Bible says, fool has said in his heart that there is no God. And that verse, when you analyze that verse is saying, it is not a logical, intellectual decision to dismiss God. You can't do it. It's too much evidence. So a person just don't believe in their heart. All the facts are right here, but they will not accept them, so they just choose to disobey God. And Paul said the same thing essentially in Romans 1:22, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Man began as the highest of God's earthly creatures, just a little below the angels. But he made himself now to become as a beast, drifting so far from God and his standards that they accept human behavior in some cases that is below that of an animal. For instance, not caring for their offspring. I watch a lot of National Geographical kind of animal shows, and all these animals, when they have little bitty newborn, little old bitty, them chickens, lions and tigers, eagles, they protect their young, they nurture their young, they care for them. But we, the highest of God's creation, just a little bit below the angels, we abuse, abandon, and abort our little ones. And it's okay, because the law says it's okay. It's not right, but it's legal. And that's the great downfall of modern humanity. They have made their rules superior to those of God. Man has failed to fulfill the intent of God in Adam to the extent that they no longer even protect their little children, minds or eyes, from things that are evil and destructive to them. Now, there are many contributing factors to the downfall of humanity, but the primary reason these global social inequities do exist is sin, and man's turning away from God and his righteousness, resulting in God removing or suspending his restraint upon mankind. In the book of Romans, said they didn't want to have anything to do with him. God said God gave them up to uncleanness and idolatry. They didn't want to have anything to do with God. He gave them over to vile passion. They didn't want to have anything to do with God. He gave them over to a reprobate mind. Interesting enough, the two words in the English language that are seldom spoke today in our modern America, one of them is Jesus, and the other one is sin. On all the public, you rarely hear somebody. Every now and then you get a believer that he'll go ahead and give a little testimony or something. They don't like that in the commercial world. They cut him off real quick. And all these so-called leaders in the government, they use words to describe sin which would be more easily conveyed if they would call it what it is, call it a spade, but they won't say it. And they don't have no problem with God. You can say God, but when you say Jesus, it's a problem, because we got to remember these other people that don't believe in Jesus. We don't want to be offensive to them. And that is just so sad for a country that say they were started on Christian values and virtues when they were organized. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that goes back to when the schools, they took prayer
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Because we had some rebels and juvenile delinquency back in the day, but if it was anything bigger than them, but we didn't shoot each other. You hit the nail on the head. The main cause is sin, the abandonment of God and His principles. That's what's wrong with the world, and that's what Jesus came to die to remedy when He does come this second time. Now, giving mankind up is an expression of the wrath of God being released upon man. In other words, He let them turn them over to themselves. Y'all want to just stay in the wilderness and act like you ain't got no sense and you don't want to have nothing to do with me? I'll be here when y'all come back, so to speak. Now, allowing man to suffer the consequences of his disobedience and rejection of God and His Word. The sins listed here are so vile, it is uncomfortable and perhaps not wise to discuss them in much detail in the public square. Yet, they are practiced today around the world with the approval of society. People know that sin will be judged, yet they take pride in practicing sin anyhow. They have no fear of God. So that's the perilous times that the Bible is talking about, is the state of humanity, socially speaking, all the things that have become weeds in the garden of society, and they've been allowed to grow, and now they are out of control. They have taken over the garden. Any questions, comments on that first one? Second one today is heaped up treasures. Let's turn to James chapter 5 and look at verses 1 through 6, a part of it, if not all of it. James 5, verses 1 through 6. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded. Now, I'm reading from the New King James, because it's a little clearer. I didn't say that earlier, but I'm reading from the New King James translation. And their corrosion